Well, marketing in a in a very simplistic way is a way in which we create products and services which satisfy a customer's need.
But are there instances, Ambi, in which the marketing can also start before there is a product or service?
Marketing is really a mix of economics, psychology, sociology, right? So all three play a role in creating this field called marketing. There are long, complicated definitions of the word brand, but the simplest definition for the word brand is a name that tells a story.
Was Steve Jobs intentionally a marketing guy?
I don't know whether you can call him the smartest marketing person who ever lived on earth. There was a product called Apple Newton which flopped, right? The Apple Cube flopped, right? They had enough flops, and he was not an innovator. I mean, many of the products he brought out was really repackaged product. So the most important thing is: are you working the market? Are you going and meeting customers? Right? Are you going and spending time with them? If you understand that, the chance of you making a mistake will be that much less.
So, Ambi, welcome to Discovery of an Author podcast. It is truly an honor to have someone like you. The kind of work that you've done in this domain, it's truly an honor. So, welcome on the podcast.
Yeah, so thank you. Thank you, Raghav, for inviting me on your Discovery of an Author podcast. Happy to be here, and I also look forward to our discussion today. Thank you.
Great. Ambi, I want to start with one question first, which is the foundation question. But before that, I'm going to share my personal, a very, small thing that we as podcasters struggles every day with brand building, with marketing. When I started my podcast, I have been listening to a lot of podcasts, Indian podcasts, as well as the podcasts that come out from the West. Now, one striking thing that all my team, when we used to look at the Indian podcasts, we used to look at the thumbnail. The thumbnail design, the branding, it seems as if everybody is following the same pattern. So you will have the image of the host, you will have the image of the guest, you will have a clickbaitish title, which might be there in the conversation, which might not be there in the conversation, right? You will have some image which can really attract you. So let's say if somebody is talking about horror podcast, so they'll say, don't watch this alone. And they'll have a horror or a ghostly or a demonic image, and two hosts would be there. And sometimes you'll see some expressions on their face, which is like this, right? So I always used to have this discussion with my team. Is marketing or brand building something that always need to follow the same pattern? Or can my brand building or can the marketing of my podcast be aligned with my philosophy? So on one hand, you have this concept, okay, Raghav, this is what is working. These kind of thumbnails are what is working. It is getting people's attention. This is how they're creating their brands. And on the other hand, we used to get confused that why cannot we create something new that is aligned with our own philosophy? So with this use case, Ambi, I'm going to ask you the first question. What is marketing?
Well, marketing in a very simplistic way is a way in which we create products and services which satisfy a customer's need. So marketing exists because customers have needs, and we are creating products and services which satisfy their needs. That's a simple explanation, and there is normally an exchange process that you are giving something to the customer and customer is giving something in return. Often it is money, but sometimes it is not money, it is time, it is attention. Today, as a podcaster, what is the customer giving you? The customer is giving you not money, but the customer is giving you time. Customer is giving you their very valuable time, which you're using to send your messages. So marketing is a simple term, is an exchange process between someone who makes a product or a service and a customer who wants that product or a service. Marketing cannot exist if the customer need doesn't exist. In simple words.
But are there instances, Ambi, in which the marketing can also start before there is a product or service? Are there instances? Can it happen? can first we, via marketing, understand if there is even a need of something that somebody is trying to build? Or is it something which only happens after you have a product? So I want to understand the scope of this thing. How powerful is this thing? Can it be even created before you have anything to offer?
So marketing often is, you have to understand what the customer needs. You may not have a product for it.
Yeah.
You may not have a service for it. But if you find there is a need for, let us say, a 2-minute advice to be given to consumers in the morning when they wake up, now there is a need for that. But no one has as yet created a nano podcast or a nano video message they can watch when they wake up, right? So then you go and create it. Sometimes it comes the other way, that products are going in this path, the very linear path. You say, no, I want to do a different product. And the consumer doesn't even know that they will need that product. But then you create that product, make it so attractive, and you create a need for that product. Whether it is Henry Ford and his Model T, or Steve Jobs and the way he got rid of the keypad in the iPhone. Till then, every mobile phone had a keypad, had a number, right? 1, 2, 3, 4 numbers. He threw it out, right? And he said, I'm going to create a phone which doesn't have a keypad. Right? The consumer, if you had gone and asked the consumer would have said, no. We need a keypad. How do we make calls? But then he created a phone, and then the consumer understood how to use it. And today, most best-selling phones don't have a keypad. Right? So both can happen. One is you find a need, and there is no one satisfying that need, and you go back and create a product. The other is you find in the product lineup there is a gap, and you create that product, and then you go and then create that need. Both can happen. Right? Sometimes what you think is a need, you create a product and you discover the need, the consumer is not willing to pay the money for it. Sometimes you create a product thinking it's a great product, right? And you go back and try selling it to the customer not willing to buy it. So both can happen.
That's a great answer, because that is what even I used to sometimes feel. Okay, both ways can happen. You don't necessarily have to have an offering to start with the marketing. The other way around can also happen, and it can actually help you in understanding what you can create that might sell. Ambi, and also sometimes it happens, right? You don't necessarily create products that the world needs. Sometimes what you create can be so revolutionary that it can create a new vertical in itself. Like, there was no need for Steve Jobs to get rid of the keyboards. BlackBerry was already dominating the market. They were doing great. Nobody came to Steve Jobs and said that, "Yaar, we do not need keyboards. Can you give me something which I can touch?" But he created something so unique, so revolutionary, and marketed in a way that it created a vertical, that it killed all the players.
So that's the thing, right? So there is a linear way in which all the companies were making their phones. He went in a different direction, right? And went in a different direction. And in his own admission, he was not very sure it will succeed. But why it succeeded was also because he created something called an app store. And a lot of third parties created products which they can sell on the app store. And that revolutionized the category. And then BlackBerry did not wake up quick enough. BlackBerry thought, you always need to give a keypad. So they didn't understand that the world was changing. The consumer is getting used to something else. And they lost the plot. Or even Kodak, right? Kodak invented digital photography. They always thought our business is selling films. And, how can we get something which will kill our film business? And someone came and killed their film business finally, right? So both can happen. If you don't wake up quick enough, you're going to lose. You're going to lose very badly.
Yeah. Ambi, I want to understand, how did this vertical of marketing first came in the mainstream? So I remember, as far as I can recollect, when I was in college, and when I was in college, I started smoking Marlboro. Why did I start smoking Marlboro? Because I used to see the ads of the Marlboro man. I mean, see, smoking is something which is not good for your health. But the image that they created, the brand that they created around that product of machismo, of a man who's riding a horse, who's maybe drinking a Jack Daniels, and who has a cigarette on his hand, was so powerful that it actually made generations smoke cigarette. And there was this thing that smoking cigarette is something which is an honorable thing for a man. And we used to look at such advertisements, and I'm like, wow, this is brilliant. So I want to understand from your perspective, which is that first product that you remember which really capitalized on marketing and it really went into your psyche ki, wow, I can become somebody if I use this product. So what was that first product, and then how marketing exploded as something of a powerful tool? It can start from the West, but what do you think is the genesis?
If you look at it, business education is a little more than 100 years old, right? And business education came from this field of economics, which is probably 200 years old, right? And in business education, finance was probably the first area which was looked at for study, right? And maybe then was probably operations. How do you manage? Frederick Winslow Taylor did all his studies in terms of, what is called time and method studies, right? All those were done by Taylor. Marketing came after that. And marketing is really a mix of economics, psychology, sociology, right? So all three play a role in creating this field called marketing. Now, which is the oldest marketing campaign? Like you said, Marlboro is quite old, and there are probably campaigns even older than Marlboro, right? I remember beer or the oldest category which used to be advertised was probably what are called patent medicine, which is blamed for a lot of wrong claims. So you drink this tonic and your hair will grow, or you put this on your body and you'll start developing muscles, stuff like that. And even in India, we've had a lot of those kind of products advertised. So the oldest form of advertising would have probably been these so-called patent medicine products, right? And then, of course, other products started emulating that. Rightly or wrongly, cars started using advertising, right? And marketing in a big way. And one of the earliest person to figure out the need for segmentation, the need for targeting, was probably Alfred P. Sloan at General Motors. Now, till then, Ford was our number one car company in America, number one car company in the world. So when Alfred P. Sloan took over as the head of General Motors, I'm talking about probably a story maybe 70, 80 years old, he said, look, everyone is not the same. There are different types of people who need different types of benefits from their cars. So he created different brands, right? He created Chevrolet for the common man. He created Cadillac, which is a more premium version. He created, Oldsmobile. He created Pontiac. He targeted different customers with different brands, and he marketed them differently through different showrooms, right? And that was a big success. And General Motors then went on to become the world's largest car company. A large measure thanks to Alfred P. Sloan's understanding of consumers and understanding of marketing to different segments of consumers. So that was a great example of using marketing in order to change the dynamics of the business. Till then, Henry T. Ford is famous to have made this comment that you can have whichever color Model T you want as long as it's black. Because he only used to make black, right? But then comes General Motors who says, I can give you Chevrolet, I can give you Oldsmobile, I can give you Pontiac, I can give you, if you have a lot of money, I can give you Cadillac, right? But it'll cost you a different amount of money. I can give it in different colors. So that was a big, big breakthrough in the world of marketing.
Yeah, brilliant. You just mentioned that marketing is a combination of three verticals in a way: sociology, psychology, and finance and economics. Right? Is storytelling a part of that vertical as well? How is storytelling intertwined with the world of marketing?
See, storytelling currently has become a buzzword. Everyone says, you become a storyteller, but psychology, sociology is all about storytelling, right? What is sociology? Sociology is the way we live. What is psychology? Psychology is the way we think, right? It's all part of storytelling. Storytelling is not something which is extra to this, outside to this. Like you said, economics, finance, you add sociology, psychology, and then you get a field called marketing. And how do you get sociology, psychology? You have to develop stories around. So in fact, in the book I've mentioned that, there are long, complicated definitions of the word brand, but the simplest definition for the word brand is a name that tells a story. A name that tells a story is a brand. Right? So storytelling is an integral part of this.
Yeah, brilliant. Because you are absolutely right. This is a buzzword. This is what we keep on hearing. A lot of, I was reading this author, Yuval Noah Harari, and I listen to a lot of these podcasters, and they're like the number one skill that you can master in today's time is storytelling. It's as if there is a marketing engine around the word storytelling that is, it's spreading. Ambi, there is one thing which always used to bother me, and I really want an answer or your opinion on this thing. And let's say if the viewers can also understand. Why is it that Steve Jobs is known as the best marketer? I really want to understand, was Steve Jobs intentionally a marketing guy? Or his product was so revolutionary that it became easy to create an ecosystem around him? Because even today, Apple is completely correlated with Steve Jobs. So you have one individual and you have one company, and they both go hand in hand. So do you think Steve Jobs was the greatest marketer of all time? Because that's how people are talking about him, selling him, telling about him, and Apple just continues to grow into a monster. What's your take on him?
Here is the thing, right? There was Steve Jobs phase 1 and Steve Jobs phase 2. Steve Jobs phase 1 was when he launched the Mac. He launched the Apple, and then he got fired, right? And then he went out and set up Pixar, and then he came back a different man, right? And then he started bringing in a lot of emotions into what he was doing. And to be fair, I don't know whether you can call him the smartest marketing person who ever lived on earth. There may be many contenders for that. But in that industry, he did a lot of things very differently. Is it that he had all successes? No. There was a product called Apple Newton which flopped, right? The Apple Cube flopped, right? They had enough flops, right? But then he saw, and he was not an innovator. I mean, many of the products he brought out was really repackaged product. The iPod, for example, was not the first MP3 player.
It was not?
It was not. There was a brand called Dragon, which was a much bigger player. But he said, look, he saw the potential for an MP3 player with a musical archive. And therefore, he spent his time trying to get the license for all the music. And he created your iTunes library. And he negotiated with the music copyright owners, right? That to allow him to sell a single track for 99 cents, right? So he managed to join the pieces that here is a MP3 player, right? And there are these music owners who own the music. How do I bring it here? And he created something called iTunes. So he put the iTunes, the iPod, and the music owners together. And he revolutionized the music industry. And then the original campaign was what? 1,000 songs in your pocket, right? That's how he marketed iPod. And then after iPod developed, the same form factor of iPod was carried on to the iPhone, right? I think iPad came, iPod came, then iPhone came. I think in some order, iPhone came the last, right? And then from iPhone, the watch has come. But they've lagged behind on many things. Like their smart lenses, they've not, they're running slow. So if you look at the global sentiment analysis for Apple today, a lot of experts say Apple has not kept pace with companies like Microsoft and Meta and Google and Amazon because they've fallen behind on AI, right? So their AI is playing catch up. Whereas Meta has launched glasses in partnership with Ray-Ban, where you can wear the glasses and you can listen to music and you can tell Meta, who sang the song. Or you can ask Meta which album is the song from. Or you can tell Meta, I don't like the song, let's play the next track. I can be driving a mobike, but I can still be listening to uh, the music on my. So Apple has some amount of catching up to do, right? But of course, he was a genius, and he was. I'm told he was not so technologically oriented, right? He was not
Interesting.
great at coding. He was not great at product design, but he was good at recognizing good design. He was good at recognizing great talent. So Johnny Ive, who he hired the head of design, he recognized him and he brought him in. Right? He understood the need to tap the right talent to put things together. So yeah, I think in a sense, even Elon Musk has done some fantastic thing. The way he visualized the entire uh, electric car industry by creating Tesla, which is an amazing thing. And then not only that, he's been repeatedly innovating with new products and new services. But again, look at Tesla. I mean, today BYD from China is way ahead of Tesla in terms of what they offer under the hood in terms of technology. Where do they come from? BYD is a battery company which said, look, we have so much great battery technology. Why don't we make cars? So BYD is really a fabulous battery with a car attached, right? So, I mean, is that smart marketing? Yeah, it is. It is smart marketing. And this is coming from a Chinese company. We're going to see this kind of stuff happening all around us as we go forward.
Beautiful, beautiful answer. Beautiful answer. Ambi, now going to go into your book, Marketing Mixology. Beautiful, beautiful book. We are going to keep this as a reference for even for our podcast. It was an absolute banger of a book. I think a lot of technicalities have been very clearly mentioned, identified, and clarified for the users. Anybody can understand, and the four verticals that you speak about in the book are so important. So you talk about the four pillars of marketing in a book: the customer, the brand, selling, and communications. So I want to understand why these four pillars. What made you narrow down to these four pillars, or are these the four pillars that also exist in theory? Or are these four some that you have understood from your experience and working that, okay, I think these four verticals are powerful?
Okay, so you have to get to the background on how the book got created, right? This is the book.
Yeah.
It's got four bottles. Says consumer understanding, brand building.
Brand building, selling, and communications, the four pillars.
Now, how did I come across these four? Are these four the most important, less important? So, in fact, the book was born in a very different way. I wrote a 10,000 word mini book for Amazon Kindle for their Amazon Prime Day on negotiation, which turned out to be a big seller. It was, it got top ranking in Amazon bestsellers. And then the next year, they invited me to write something on brand. I wrote on branding. Again, that did well. So after some time, the copyrights for these two came back to me. So I had a chapter on negotiation, I had a chapter on branding, and my publisher, Westland, Karthika from Westland, and my literary agent, Anish Chandy, said, look, why don't we put this together as a book? But can you write on two more topics? So I wrote new topics. I wrote on consumer understanding and communication. Then Arodeep came in as an editor and he said, look, putting these together, they are looking disjointed. Can you make all the chapters sound similar? Right? In a sense, they should be a part of a book. So I had to rewrite a lot of that. Now, today, thinking back, should I have only had four? Should I have had two more chapters? Like, today I just read a review by Harish Bhatt saying, you could have had one more chapter on pricing and maybe one more chapter on go-to-market. In fact, that's why in the book I've clarified. In the last chapter of the book, I've clarified there are many more skills you need
Yeah.
to succeed in marketing. But I had to pick and choose. And I chose these four. And why did I call it mixology? Because most marketing books will cover consumers, will cover branding, but they will not cover negotiation, they will not cover communication.
And I think the best part about a book, after reading a book, there is one thing that absolutely got clarified in my mind. I used to think that marketing is all about brand building. For me, it was just brand building. Okay, how do you build a brand? How do you build a brand? And specifically logo, design, color, theme, advertisements. But after reading Marketing Mixology, I understood all the three verticals as well. Now, see, the customers part of it is something that people generally do not go a lot into, because as a product manager, I'm a senior product manager who's working in an AI company. It is my job to understand the users as well for whom we are building the products. But for the developers and for other people, they're very excited about building the product, releasing, and then seeing what happens. Now, that though is a valid approach, but not something that can work in today's day and age. You cannot create something, be excited just for the product, and think that the product is going to market itself. Ambi, that's the problem in a lot of tech companies that I've seen. And also, whenever they are creating a food-based product or a protein bar or anything else, very less do you see people actually talking to the customers. And that you have mentioned in the book, that you advise somebody to go and speak to the customers, that why they are wearing your shoes and what problems they have. That is not happening. The excitement is about building products and somehow thinking that the product will talk. The
So
product
this is
will
the
sell.
problem, right? This is the problem. More so in the tech space, that all of you people are so obsessed with technology that you're not spending enough time trying to understand the customer.
We are not.
You think something is very exciting, but the customer may not think it's very exciting. Right? In which case you spent days and months together putting something, which is why they say now in design thinking, the whole idea is to rapid prototyping. Very quickly doing a prototype, testing it, coming back and changing it, testing it, coming back and changing it. So once I was invited by one of the big tech companies to speak to their, R&D people. There are 20 of them in the room, all PhDs from the top university in the US. So they're developing something for advertising planning. So I said, look, have you ever gone and met an advertising media planner? And they said, no. They said, then what are you working on? I think you should go mirror them, sit with them, understand what they're doing, what are their pain points, what problem are you solving, right? You're sitting here, you've been developing these great models, but if that guy doesn't know how to even, touch it, then it's going to be wasted time and effort. So I think the problem is, I also know, I think in the chapter, some people have said, look, you're overemphasized going and meeting customers. Because going and meeting customers, you'll not meet too many customers. So you'll come out with a very biased view, right? But the point is, if you go meet customers, you'll get to know, even if you meet 5 customers, 5 are very different. And therefore you'll say, yeah, I can't make an assumption that all my customers are from, let's say, Gurgaon, or all my customers have their morning coffee at Starbucks. No, there are different types of customers. One will understand. And once you understand that, then you'll probably be able to invest in real research, where you talk to 100, 200, 500,000 customers. So the most important thing is, are you working the market? Are you going and meeting customers? Right? Are you going and spending time with them? Right? Are you doing home visits? Are you what is called shadowing your customer? Say what is called the one day in the life of a customer. Are you trying to understand that? If you understand that, the chance of you making a mistake will be that much less. You may still make mistakes, but the chances are lower.
I'll tell you the problem, because what you're saying is absolutely right. I'll tell you the problem. When as a PM, or also when I'm trying to understand the customers, because it is a part of my vertical that I have to do it, not necessarily something that I'm stoked about. I'm being very honest. This is how the tech industry works. I feel somehow that who will go out and talk to customers when I have my laptop, I have the internet, I have the Google, I have the AI. Let me first try to understand and collect the data. If someone has already published a report or a research, I can just get the data from that. So, seeing the irony, Ambi, to create products for human beings, we are not talking to human beings, but we are relying on the data that we can get from the internet, and then creating an assumption about a human being, and then spending billions and millions of money in developing a product based on that assumptions, which is cut out from the interaction.
So Raghav, there is nothing wrong. I'm saying it's not wrong with that, right? So let's, for example, sometime when I start working on I'm working on some project right now. What did I do first? First thing I did was I went and started looking at reviews, right? So there are various Google reviews. I started analyzing them, got a feel, right? What kind of reviews there? Then I said, look, I know this particular friend of mine who's used this service. I called and had a 1 hour conversation with him. Now I'll talk to 2 more people, 3 more people, 4 people. So I'm not saying for a minute uh, what you scrape from the net is useless. It is definitely useful. Okay. But that's not enough because everyone doesn't post on the net, right? Generally, people who post on the net are people who are very angry. So you'll get a slightly more negative skew to your feedback, right? But if you go meet them and talk to them, you'll get a different point of view. But today's day and age, you don't want to get out of your seat. You want to sit in your air-conditioned comfort, put on your music, put on your headphone, and keep doing your laptop stuff. Now that'll not take you too far. That'll take you some distance. I mean, it's what you're doing on the net is useful. I'm not saying for a minute throw it out. It's useful. But I'm saying don't stop with that. Use it as a starting point to engage more meaningfully with your potential customers, right? So read all that, analyze all that, and then say, look, I have these starting hypotheses. Let me go and talk to some customers. Then you'll be in a better place, is what my hypothesis is.
So let's say today I want to start a coffee brand. So let's say I'm like, yeah, I see the success of Blue Tokai. I see the success of Third Wave. And I am a coffee connoisseur. I like coffee and I do understand where I can source great coffee from. So let's say I want to start a coffee brand. I'm the founder and let's say I have a team of 2 more people who are with me. Let's say they are co-founders. Somebody's handling the finance, somebody's happening the operations, and somebody's looking at the logistics. Maybe I'm looking at the marketing, maybe I'm looking at the product design, customers. So if I want to start a coffee brand, I have my resources, I know where to source this from, everything is there. What should be my role in understanding my customers? What should I do? How should I start? The first step, as we are discussing, is I first try to make sense of what is there online. I go and try to understand what these other brands are doing. What is the next step? What can I, as one individual who's just starting a company, who doesn't have a lot of money to invest in a marketing team, right? Maybe I am somebody from the marketing background. Maybe I have been in the marketing background for the past 15 years. What should I do to understand my customers if I want to start a coffee brand?
So you have to go and probably sit and study what people are doing, right? Are they happy with the coffee they're drinking? What is the level of dissatisfaction? Is there a gap? So there is this thing I've said in the book, I think, which is there is a gap in the market, but is there a market in the gap? So try and understand that. Is there a gap in the market? Right? The gap in the market is, for example, for freshly ground coffee. Or there is a gap in the market for coffee with unique flavors, right? Turmeric coffee, I don't know, pepper coffee or masala coffee, I say, yeah, maybe I'll do something different. So you will go talk to consumers who are drinking coffee to find out what is it that they are missing and what is it extra they can have. Then you'll formulate a few such products and then test it out and what they will like. And based on that, you'll keep iterating till you get the right formula. Right? Blue Tokai must have done that. Third Wave must have done that. All these people have, done that to get to some place. They have to be different. You cannot offer the same thing, which let us say Barista or,
CCD.
Yeah, CCD or Starbucks offer. You will have to be different. How are you different? Is the difference coming from a particular type of coffee bean you're getting? Is it going to come from the way you're roasting it? Is it going to come from the kind of additional flavors you handle? Or is it going to come simply from pricing, right? There is this little chai thing called Chai Point.
Chai Point.
Very inexpensive chai.
Yeah.
They have interesting flavors, right? They have masala, they have what is called
Ilaichi, masala, adrak, everything they have. They have some snacks to go along with those as
correct.
well.
So they have created a little dhaba kind of a thing with chai and some snacks. No, chai has done the same thing at a slightly more classy level.
Premium level, yeah.
Right. So each person does. So you have to go and find out. what the consumer is missing, and can you offer that and make some money out of it, right?
Yeah. Okay, so now I have found out. I've spoken with people, I interacted with people, maybe in the cafes, maybe by organizing community meetups, XYZ. I have a lot of data. I collect that data, and with whom should I share that data, and what should be the next steps?
So, for example, continuing the same coffee
Yeah,
story,
example.
right? Suppose you say, look, you found that uh, that consumers whom you talk to want a stronger coffee aroma, right? Coffee, when they drink, it doesn't have the strong coffee's aroma. So you may say, look, there's an opportunity for me to, let's say, create a brand which offers strong coffee aroma coffee, right? This is my somewhat, the area I want to go into. Then you may say, could talk to your product expert to say, look, can you roast it in a particular way? Can we add something in it so the aroma gets thrown out? For example, it is a completely different, from a domain. Like I was doing the book launches in Bombay, and I did one in Chennai, and I did one in Bangalore last week. So in Bombay and in Chennai, I invited a mixologist, someone who makes drinks, right? They're not just a bartender; they're way beyond that. They do all that we do in marketing. They understand the customer, formulate a product, and then give it to them in a particular style so that the customer is very happy. No, the mixologist who came in my Bombay uh, launch had an interesting point. He said, look, I asked him, what is your so-called secret ingredient? Any idea what it is?
No. What did he say?
He said, I always add a little bit of salt in every drink.
Couldn't
Right?
even think about it. Wow.
So even if you're making old fashioned, which is probably whiskey with tonic,
Yeah.
right? Um, he says, I add a little bit of salt because the salt brings out the whiskey flavor, right? So now I'm saying, what if I add a little bit of salt to my coffee,
Hmm.
bring out the coffee flavor? I don't know, right? But apparently there is some chemical in this which is sodium ion, and sodium ions get dislocated, whatever it is, something happens there, right? And the other mixologist in my panel said yes. She said, yeah, salt is great, and so is ice, right? We put a lot of ice, uh, so that the drink doesn't melt quickly. The ice doesn't melt quickly. And the mixologist I talked to in Chennai said we actually get perfect ice, and we fly perfect ice down from Delhi to Chennai in my bar. So, so there are different things that people do. So how can I make my coffee different? Can I make my coffee different by grinding it differently, by adding some little extra like salt, right? So I bring out the flavor. Or should I source the coffee beans from Colombia or wherever, right? So what do I do to make my brand different?
Ambi, I'm gonna taking the same example of coffee. Move on to the next vertical of brand building. So I first want to understand what is brand building, because as I said in the start of this podcast, I always used to think that marketing is brand building. Brand building, now there are two verticals in brand building. One is the individual brand building, like a brand around an individual. Let's say it could be a journalist, it could be an actor or a podcaster, or a marketing genius who has created a brand around his business. And the second brand building is when you create brands around institutions like Tata, like Birla, like Ambani, like Reliance, like Jio, and all these coffee brands. So, Ambi, what is brand building for any common person to understand? What is brand building with respect to individuals or with respect to organizations?
Oh, your impression is not wrong. In fact, Kotler has said branding equals marketing. Without branding, what is marketing? You're selling generic products, right? That's not marketing. Marketing is selling something with a name. So a brand is a name, logo, symbol, which distinguishes what you offer from what your competitor offers, right? And you're satisfying a customer need by offering this. So a brand is really a story that you're telling the customer why they should buy your product. And it's And like you said, there are different types of branding today. At one time it was only products, and then it became services. And 25 years ago, there was an article written by Tom Peters, which said, "Brand called you." So the whole idea of personal branding became very big. Like today, there are personal brand, there are corporate brands, like you said, the Tata, Adani, Ambani. There are NGO brands like World Wildlife Fund, or uh, what is it called?
PETA.
Cry, right? Cry or Greenpeace. These are all brands, but they are not for profit brands. And then, of course, there are product brands like your Sundrop and Santoor, and Tata, and then, of course, corporate brands. There are service brands. There are online brands which you can't even touch, right? Mintra or Amazon is an online brand. You don't even touch that. All these are brands, and the basic principle of branding applies whatever you do. Principles of branding applies to you as a podcaster. The principle of branding applies to Greenpeace. The principle of branding applies to Tata. Principle of branding applies to Lux toilet soap. It applies to everyone, right? The modalities will vary, but the principles are same.
So what are these broad principles of brand building? So let's say we again continue our use case of that coffee brand. So now we have understood what needs to be created, what different needs to be created. Now we want to create a brand around that. So what are the things that we need to do to make sure that we are following the principles of branding, and also we are creating a separate niche and positioning for our coffee brand? And why I'm taking coffee brand as example, Ambi, because it is a very competitive space. So if you are able to create a niche of yourself in this space, that means you've done something right. So what now should I do to create that niche brand for my coffee brand? What are the principles?
So in the book, I've explained what is called a brand building pentagon.
Yeah.
We'll go through 5 steps. First step is brand analysis, which is to look at competition, look at consumer, look at the market, and identify the gap, right? In the coffee, we said, look, you look at all the competition and find out that, look, there is a need for a particular kind of coffee which has a stronger flavor, for example, right? And then you create the product for that flavor. So you finish your brand analysis, then you come to brand definition, where you position. You have to write a positioning statement. How do you going to position the product or position your coffee shop? Who's the customer? So therefore you write a clear, articulated positioning statement, right? That becomes a brand definition. Then you come to brand articulation. Brand articulation is what is going to be a brand name. What kind of logo will you have? What kind of identity will you have? How will your shop look? How will your coffee shop look? What kind of uniform will people wear? Right? And what kind of communication am I going to do? Am I going to have ads on YouTube? Am I going to have ads on TV? What am I going to do in terms of advertising? So that is the third step, which is brand analysis, brand definition, brand articulation. Then you come to brand measurement, which is you have to study, look, is it working? Are people understanding my brand? Are people coming and buying my brand? Are people becoming loyal to me? Right? So once you get to that stage, then you say, look, how do I do brand expansion? Which means, can I now take my brand and offer something else like Starbucks went berserk. They started, I think, getting into movies, right, which flopped, right? But then using my coffee brand, can I now start selling snacks, right? Can I start packaging my coffee and selling it in a smart bazaar of Reliance, right? Because my brand has become strong. Now I can now package it in a dabba and sell it in let's say supermarkets or A-class outlets, right? So that is your brand expansion. Once you've done that, then you come back to brand analysis. Where am I? Should I look at something else? So this is the brand building pentagon, a 5-stage process, which I've explained in the book with some examples. So the same 5-stage process you can apply for your coffee shop experiment.
Is there one specific Indian company or one specific Indian brand, new or old or whatever, that you feel they have nailed the branding exercise and their brand is so huge right now that it is practically untouchable, intouchable. Doesn't matter what happens, the brand will remain, it will stand the test of time. And they have followed those five principles, or the pentagon of brand building. One brand that you feel is completely brilliant in the Indian ecosystem that somebody can emulate.
So the brand which, which I am a big fan of, and our agency has done a lot of work for this brand, is Amul. Right? Amul is a truly Indian brand. Amul started off as milk, right? And then they got into milk powder, they got into cheese, they got into butter, and then they got into ice cream. We were doing the advertising for ice cream. People said, look, Amul is a milk brand. Milk is a very boring product. Why will anyone buy an ice cream with an Amul name on it? But then they proved everyone wrong. They priced their ice cream very well. Today they have launched ice cream parlors. They have chocolate. They have, they are the largest FMCG company in the country because they kept changing. They've tried, any year probably they launch 20 different products. 15, 16 of them may not succeed. 5, 6 will succeed, right? And they keep moving. And so it's an amazing Indian company, and it's in the cooperative sector. The profits of that company goes to farmers, doesn't go to someone's pocket. So I only wish we had 10 more Amuls in this country. Unfortunately, we have to settle with one.
And this Amul girl brand thing, was that something that happened via fluke, or was that a part of their strategic branding exercise? Because that Amul girl thing is genius. Whatever event happens in the country, they are able to modify that Amul girl in that format, and it is absolutely captivating.
Also, I've written about this in my other book, Nawab New Noodles, about the story behind the entire Amul, hoarding campaign. In fact, that entire outdoor campaign was started by an agency called Dakuna, where Sylvester Dakuna has used to do the advertising. And their challenge was every time they used to do these utterly butterly Amul kind of billboard. And after a point of time, started getting boring. So when during the, I think, Bombay horse race, Derby race, they put out a hoarding which said thoroughbred, BREAD, right? Not BRED. And that's the starting of what they called the topicals, right? Today, they probably put out 3 messages every week, or 4 messages, or 5 messages. Sylvie's son, Rahul Dakuna, runs a campaign. And while they say mascots is old news, they've managed to keep the little girl, same polka dot, and they keep making her do all sorts of funny things. And it is probably the most recognized message. And mind you, it's not, they don't spend millions of dollars doing it. It's a very small budget, right? But consistency pays. And the other interesting trivia about the Amul topical campaign is that the agency has full freedom. In fact, the agency can create the ad, put it out into media. Client actually approves the campaign after it has been released. So I see something today. I see India's won the Edgbaston match. Okay, I've created a hoarding design. I've created a topical print ad design. It's already gone into media. Jayan Mehta, the MD of GCMMF, the owner of the Amul brand, opens the newspaper and sees the new ad, like you and me. Now, this is a unique. This, I don't think, happens anywhere in the world for any brand.
Ambi, you said something very interesting in this brand building, which really caught my eye. You said one of the biggest myths in India is that branding is only for companies with huge budgets. So that's not true, right? Because this is the thing that people think about branding. It's a very cost inducive exercise. You need to spend millions and millions of money to create brands.
See, this is a problem. Most people think when they say branding, they think of television advertising and spending 1 crore rupees. No need to do that, right? Branding can be done by, distributing leaflets in your neighborhood, right? You open your coffee shop and then you spend, let's say, a few thousand rupees and distribute 10,000 leaflets in the area in which your coffee shop is there, and say with a little coupon saying, second coffee free. So come, you get 1 coffee, I'll give you another coffee free. You got trial. People are coming. If they like your coffee, they like your flavor, they'll come again. They'll tell their friends, right? So, but then if you want to do that, then you have to make sure that you have a recognized brand. You have a brand which has a distinct look and feel. It cannot just say coffee shop, right? It has to, like your own podcast has a name, right? You ought to have a name which people will remember. People will share with people. Say, look, I went to that coffee shop called Rio, right? It's a very interesting coffee shop. So you got to have the name, the identity, the look and feel. And then you don't need a lot of money. You can do it slowly and steadily. You're spending small amounts of money.
Beautiful. I mean, that was a very profound statement and something that gave me a sigh of relief. I'm like, thank God, you don't have to shell out a lot of money for this thing. Now, Ambi, the next segment, selling and negotiations, to be honest, was a bit confused. Not confused on reading, no. I was confused on the vertical of selling and negotiations being a part of marketing. It seems as if this is a vertical of sales. But so I want to understand, so let's get into it. Let us understand selling and negotiations. Why is it important? And why is it part of one of your vertical? Because as you rightly said, there were a lot of things that you could have included. So where does selling and negotiations come into the picture?
One is wrong to say that selling is not part of marketing. Selling is part of marketing, right? You cannot say that, look, selling is, the problem in many B schools is a lot of these MBA students say that I don't want to be in sales, I want to be in marketing.
Bilkul,
But
absolutely.
the argument is to be in marketing, you need to know sales. If you've not gone and spent time in sales, you cannot succeed in marketing.
If you have not spending time in sales, you can't succeed in marketing.
Can't succeed in marketing. You
That
look
is
at all the
brilliant.
big FMCG companies, Unilever, P&G, Mondelez, Wipro, Dabur, Marico. What do when they take MBA students? Do they put them in marketing? No. First 2 years is in the market. They work as an area sales manager working in the market. So you may be joining from a fancy business school from Calcutta or from Ahmedabad. When you join these companies, you're sent as an area sales manager in some small town. Where you go,
Wow.
you have a team of 6, 7 sales executives or sales reps working with you. You're going into the market every day, meeting 40 retailers. And when you're meeting retailers, you're also meeting the retailers' customers. So if you don't do that, if you don't spend time in marketing, you cannot succeed if you don't spend time in sales,
Sales.
you can't succeed in marketing. In fact, when I started my career in advertising, in an agency called Rediffusion, what is the first thing they did? They said, go spend time in sales. So I spent 3 months in Rajasthan with a company which was marketing toothpaste, which was a client of my agency. And I covered the entire, southern belt of Rajasthan, right? Barwer, Biamar, Savai Ganga, uh, Savai Madhopur, Jodhpur, Ajmer. This is the beat I covered, right? I get up in the morning, meet the sales executive. We used to call them a territory sales in charge in the distributor outlet. And then you start working the market, 40 calls a day, make report, submit the report, make sure the product is delivered. Now, today, a lot of this has become digital, right? Today, you're going into the retail outlet. The retail outlet's name comes on your smartphone or your pad. You're booking the order. You're digitally sending it to your distributor. Distributor automatically sending the product back. Now, technology has changed. But in India, the general trade, which is what we call GT, GT is still 70-80% of everything that's bought by the Indian consumer, right? If you don't spend time in the market selling, you're not going to succeed in marketing. Now, if you take IT, the same thing is true. If you don't go and actually spend time meeting customers, selling to customers, you're not going to be successful in marketing. Right? So whether it is B2B or B2C, you got to, in fact, I've quoted someone who's the head of marketing at IBM, said that the first time when she joins any company,
Yeah.
she meets 20 customers. That's the first job she does, right? And you're in marketing. You're going and meeting customers, right? Finding out how they buy, right? So that's critical. So who says sales and marketing are separate? They're together, right? If you don't understand sales, you can't succeed in marketing.
How is then, why is it then you have a different department for sales and marketing? if the roles are complementary, if the roles are actually similar, why is there a separate department then? Why have people segregated sales and marketing to the extent that new MBA people don't want to be in sales and they just want to be in marketing because they think that is cool?
That's a problem. In better companies, sales and marketing actually meet at the CMO's table, right? The CMO
Interesting.
will look after marketing and also sales. So they have to meet. Either they meet at the CMO's table or they meet at the CEO's table. Somewhere they meet. You cannot keep these totally separate, because if you keep them separate, these two will blame each other, right? Sales will say, marketing is not working, I'm not able to sell. Marketing will say, I'm generating good lead, these guys don't know how to sell, right? You will never be able to solve the problem. So someone has to make sure that these two work together, which is why in good companies, you have people moving from sales to marketing and marketing to sales. Both happens.
That is very new. I mean, I had no idea that that happens. That CMO is the one that they both refer to, and it has to be something similar and not separate.
Yeah.
That is very profound. No, so okay, let's again continue the case of this coffee brand. So now we have the journey of understanding the customers, of brand building. Now I have done my brand building. I have started getting traction in. How can my team successfully communicate and sell the product? If there are certain 3-4 things that you can tell ki, okay, for this brand, these are some of the selling tactics that in today's time can absolutely work and then should be deployed, what would those be? We are continuing our same example of the coffee brand that we're trying to build.
So, in the chapter on selling and negotiation, I've talked of, negotiation tools, various ways of negotiating, right? And I've also talked of selling, which is what is the simplest tool, which is probe, support, close. Which is to probe the customer to find out what do they need, offer your product and support it, and then close it, right? This is what a good, a barista is trained to do, or a good mixologist is trained to do, to probe the customer, find out what they like, right? And then offer a solution. So you like a strong flavor, you'd like a little bit of ginger in it. I can add that. I can add, you're allergic to normal milk. I can add almond milk. I can do whatever, so the whole idea is to probe, which is again understanding customer, and then create a product, and then support it, and then sell it, right? So same principles apply, whichever product you are, whether you're selling a software product to a B2B customer or a coffee shop, which is what they do, right? They say, what would you like to have today, right? And then if they are pushy, they say, we've got a great new coffee bean from all the way from Colombia, just arrived yesterday. We're just in the process of grinding it. I can make a great cup of coffee for you. So he say, how much does it cost? It costs 600 rupees. Say, no. I don't want to spend so much. So it's okay. I can make a different coffee for you for 250 bucks, right? So probe, support, close.
So these are the 3 principles that we can apply irrespective of the domain and the product that we are trying to sell or product that we are trying to market. And then we can create an entire ecosystem around these things.
Absolutely.
Makes sense. You mentioned in the book a simple rule of thumb if you're buying something of rather intermediate value is to ask the seller for the asking price. Can you tell me how anchoring effect works here, and then how do biases come in play?
Okay, so there is a whole idea of what is called an anchoring effect, which is who goes first. So I want to sell a car, and you come to buy the car. It's a, let's say, 8-year-old Swift, and I know the market price for 8-year-old Swift is, let's say, 4 lakhs or 3 lakhs, right? And so I know that you got 3 lakhs in your head. That's why you're coming to me. But then I say, look, this car, I've not even driven 50,000 kilometers. And it's had no accident. I've changed the tires last month. I changed the battery last month. So I'm expecting 5 lakhs. So I've anchored it on 5 lakhs. You came with 3 lakhs in mind. So I've moved the anchor up to 5 lakhs. Now it's up to you to say, look, how do I get this guy off 5 lakhs and get him to start talking of 3 or 3.5 lakhs? So it depends on the product category, but intermediate product, final product, anchoring is a big area for you to work with. Suppose I've said 5 lakhs and you had 3 lakhs in mind, and then you may now change the topic. Swift actually is a small car. I've actually been wondering whether I should go for a small car or I should get a Swift sedan. In fact, I was thinking of a Swift sedan and I changed the topic. I discussed that for 5 minutes. And then I say, if I have to buy a Swift, Mr. Sharma, I don't think I can afford to pay more than 3 lakhs. So you got that guy to stop thinking of 5 lakhs and you brought him back to 3 lakhs. Right. So this is the way you do negotiation. So the whole thing I've talked about in the book is what is called BATNA, which is the best alternative to a negotiated agreement. Saying, look, the seller will have a BATNA of, I will ask for 5, I'll settle for 4. The buyer will say, look, I would ideally like 3, but I'm willing to settle for 4. So both of you meet at 4. Right. But the whole thing is discovery, price discovery. That takes time. You can't be in a big hurry to, ये इसमें ले लो उसमें ले लो. No, there is some give and take happens.
Yeah.
Go through that. Yeah.
Makes sense. Ambi, now we'll come to the last pillar of marketing, which is communications. So why is it important? And let's take off any company that you feel they have pioneered it. So let's understand communication and why was it the fourth most important pillar in your mixology concept?
So in the mixology thing, what I've done is, in fact, I've talked about communication, but I've talked not just marketing communication, but all communication. Like what we are doing now, this is communication, right? So one-to-one communication, oral communication, written communication, one-to-many communication, right? All that is important if you're going to be successful in marketing. Because unlike, let's say, an IT engineer or a finance, manager or an HR manager, a marketing manager or a marketing executive is constantly communicating. Either she is communicating to customers or she's communicating internally to the product team or communicating to the factory or communicating to the advertising agency or communicating to the PR team. You're communicating all the time. So how are you communicating? What language do you use? Both written as well as oral is important, which is why I talked about that course called Written Analysis and Communication, which is a very important course they teach in some of the top B schools. So communication in marketing is more than marketing communication. It is also individual communication. How do you make a presentation? Because most marketing product managers and marketing managers have to stand up and make presentations regularly. Internal presentations as well as external presentations. How are you going to do it? How do you prepare? How do you present? And that's communication. And of course, then the whole chapter also talks about marketing communication and the 6 M's of marketing communication, which is important, right? So more than any other manager in any other stream, in marketing, communication is extremely important. That's the whole net of that chapter.
So the internal communication within the company as well as the communication that you put out for the customers and the consumers of your own brand. These are the two kind of communication that you're talking about.
Absolutely. So communicating internally, communicating to your various stakeholders. The stakeholders could be your stockist. Stakeholder could be your VCs, your private equity guys, right? How are you communicating? How are you communicating to them, right? All this is important.
Makes sense. Ambi, you have mentioned something called the integrated marketing. Can you put some light on this as we see job roles are asking? So basically a lot of these job portals, when somebody is searching for a job in marketing, they are asking for integrated marketing experts. So what is this integrated marketing and why is it on the rise and why are job seekers looking for people who have these experiences?
So I don't know what exactly the job profile are, but in the chapter on communication, I've talked about what is called integrated marketing communication.
Yeah.
Integrated marketing communication is what used to be called advertising. Today, integrated marketing communication is a lot more than advertising. There is PR, there is events, there is influencer marketing, right? There is search marketing, there is social media marketing. All this forms a part of integrated marketing communication. The term integrated marketing communication was coined by a professor at a middle school, Northwestern University, called Don Schultz. He said, when you're doing today, you have multiple ways of communicating with your customers. You have TV, you have radio, you have billboard, but now you have social media, you have search, you have influencer marketing, you have PR, etc. All this has to say the same thing somewhat. You cannot, in one media say that my coffee is very good coffee flavor, and another part of the communication, I say that my coffee is the most cost-effective coffee. And in the third piece of communication, I say my sofa is the most comfortable. Then you're going to confuse the hell out of the customers. So if you're saying my brand is focused on coffee flavor, in everything that you do, you need to talk of coffee flavor, is what integrated marketing communication is.
And do you also feel that having all these new age platforms is an added advantage for a marketer? I mean, let's say you have Instagram, you have TikTok, you have Facebook, you have WhatsApp. When you see such platforms coming up and creators creating and consumers consuming, do you feel ki that's great? We have now one more platform that we can capitalize on and promote and talk about a brand. So what is your personal take on all these social media platforms coming up?
So there is a problem here, Raghav. The problem is the new toy syndrome. Every marketing manager, brand manager wants to try something new. Right? So they see some other brand doing something on Instagram and they want to do Instagram. They see some other brand doing some topical advertising, they want to do topical advertising. It will tend to distract. So you have to be clear. Is it relevant for my target audience? Is it relevant for my product? Like there is no point in doing Insta for a high-tech product, right? For a B2B product.
Yeah.
Don't work, right? Whereas if I'm selling a fashion product, Insta is perfect. I don't need LinkedIn, right? But if I'm a B2B serious product selling machinery, then maybe I should focus on LinkedIn. I should not waste my time doing influencer or waste my time doing Insta. So depending on the product category, every new platform offers a new opportunity. But it's up to you to say, look, does it fit in with my consumer? See, the issue is not with the platform. Issue is the consumer. Where is your consumer? Is my consumer spending more time on Insta? Or is my consumer spending more time on LinkedIn? Or is my consumer spending more time on YouTube? Or is my consumer spending more time on Facebook? Or is my consumer spending more time on Twitter? Where is my consumer? See, no brand has unlimited resources. If you have unlimited resources, then you can do everything. You can do TV advertising, you can do print advertising, you can do outdoor, you can do radio, you can do cinema, you can do search, you can do influencer, you can do Facebook, you can do everything. But you have limited money. If you have limited money, you have to decide what is my cost-effective advertising. And I've talked about it in the book. What is my return on marketing investment?
Yes.
What is my ROMI? And depending on my ROMI, I may say that I'm a podcaster. I will focus all my energy on a medium where consumers come to learn. And that medium, I think, is LinkedIn. Or say, I want to go to a medium where consumers come to pick up bit-sized information. So I focus all my energy on Twitter, right, where consumers come. So you have to decide that. Just because a new platform has come, you can't say, I will do that also. Then all your money will get wasted.
What a beautiful insight, Ambi. Thank you for saying that. I mean, it used to confuse. I mean, thank you. What a beautiful insight.
Thank
Wow.
you. Yeah, simple, very simple to me, but yeah, I'm
No,
happy.
because I'll tell you what you're talking about, the new toy syndrome is what we call FOMO.
Yeah,
And this again has become a buzzword like storytelling. Ki FOMO. Fear. Ambi, there are CRM companies, SaaS based CRM companies who have started podcasts on YouTube. And they have hired good comedians to be the host of those podcasts. That's what I'm talking about. Is what would you say to this? Isn't this FOMO?
it's crazy, right? I mean, compare it, right? You say serious company hiring a comedian to do a podcast.
Huh?
Contrast that with Microsoft, which got Harsha Bogle to host a 6 episode series on AI as a podcast.
Sorry, they did that. They invited Harsha Bogle.
Yeah, but it was serious. It was serious AI discussion. It's a great podcast, right? But Harsha Bogle doesn't talk only of cricket there. He talks of technology. But there are multiple guests and invitees in that show who have talked about. Or recently, I did a podcast with Kunal Vijayakar, who's a talented
Food
artist.
critic. He's a food critic.
He
Yeah.
take it as thing to IDFC First Bank hired him through IVM podcast to do a series called History of India. So I did a podcast, I did an episode with him on history of Indian advertising. He's done something else, the history of Indian food, history of Indian trains, history of. So he's doing a series of 100 or so episodes, each on a different topic, talking to one domain expert.
Yes.
There is a domain expert. Kunal says, I'm not an expert in this. I've got a domain expert who will talk to me.
So that means not fooling your audience and also being ethical also becomes a very strong thing when it comes to marketing. That you have to make sure that you're also not fooling your audience with the wrong communication or the wrong information. The reason he's inviting domain experts or the reason I invite only authors is for the same reason that I do not want wrong information to go out, and that is my responsibility as a communication. Yeah.
So the consumer will not come. Right? They'll come for the first episode and they'll say, look, this guy is talking nonsense. So I'm going away. Why did I listen to 6 episodes of Harsha Bogle? I know Harsha. I listened to the first one and then I say, this is very interesting. Yeah. I listened to all 6. Right? Because the first one was very good. They got special scientists from some universities and Microsoft talking. It was very interesting. Right? So you got to get the right domain experts who can talk sense. You got to get good scripting to hold the attention of the consumers for whatever 30, 40, 50 minutes, 1 hour, 2 hours, and the consumer will come.
Yeah.
If the consumer comes and finds that you're just talking some nonsense with some random people, they're not going to come again. They'll come once, they're gone.
Absolutely. Ambi, one last question to sum up our entire conversation, and I need your honest and very raw opinion on this thing, okay? We were talking about the new toy syndrome. We were talking about FOMO. AI somewhere comes in the same category. As a marketer, as somebody who's in this industry for so many years, you have pioneered so many things. What are your honest opinion about AI changing things in the marketing domain? I want to understand the pros and the cons, because there is nothing that can only have the cons or the pros. There are always mix. What are the pros and the cons of artificial intelligence related tools entering the domain of marketing, communications, and all these verticals? What's your take?
I think AI is going to be, in my mind, a great boon. So let me, for example, even this whole book, the original, I wanted a slightly quirky title. So the title I had in mind was Marketing Masala Mix.
Okay.
The cover design should look like a masala box, like an MDH or a Badshah masala box. Very catchy. But my publisher and my literary agent said, look, it's too gimmicky. You should think of something else. And the titles which were floating around was Simple Marketing, Get Set Market, titles like that. I was not happy with that. So I said, look, I was learning how to use ChatGPT, how to write prompts. So I started writing prompts to find out, can ChatGPT suggest a name? So I said, there's a book which contains 4 chapters. It's an interesting mix of titles, and I want a quirky name. So as the first prompt, second prompt, third prompt, fourth prompt, I had got some 300 names, and somewhere in the middle, I found the word mixology. I said, that's interesting. So I said, my book is going to be called Marketing Mixology. Then I went back to ChatGPT. I said, design a cover for me. I want you to show 4 bottles, each bottle labeled as, brand building, understanding consumers, selling and negotiation, and communication. So 3, 4 book designs came. I gave another prompt, got 3, 4, and I got something which then I used for my designer to design this, right? So in a sense, this cover itself is a marriage of human intelligence, intuition, and AI, right? So that's a clear demonstration. So what did it do? By using AI, I could reduce the time taken otherwise to think of a name, think of a cover. So I could reduce that. So this is what's going to happen. I mean, people are going to use AI to develop new ways of ideating, new ways of, picking scripts, which you may then use to write a better script. What you get from AI is never perfect. So you'll have to add your stuff to make it better, which is what people will do. So, you know, that's one area. The other area is look at consumer research. In even 2 years ago, when we were doing some project and we got some, we scraped and we got about 5,000 customer reviews. Someone had to sit and analyze it. It took days. Today, I can upload those 5,000 customer reviews on an open AI platform and get an analysis done. Right? It's fantastic. Which was earlier used to take days. And even this Zoom meeting we're doing, and I can get the minutes of the Zoom meeting, the meeting is over. But problem is it'll have mistakes. So someone has to go through it and correct the mistakes. You can't take it as gospel. So this is where human AI tools have to work together. If you take a short circuit, saying, I'm doing a meeting, I'm not going to take minutes, whatever Zoom gives me, or whatever MS Teams gives me, I'll use as minutes, then you're digging your own grave because these tools still make mistakes. And those mistakes can be vital. So you got to listen to the conversation, you got to remember what was said, and then when the minutes come from Zoom or MS Team, you should be able to point out the mistake. For example, we were doing a discussion with a client, and in the discussion, a name Ramkumar came. Ramkumar was not in the discussion, right? But in the minutes, it said Dr. Ramkumar said this. No, there was no Ramkumar in the meeting. That's a big blunder by the minute-taking AI tool. Right? So you got to watch out for that. If you don't watch out for that, you're dead.
So basically, the turnaround time is something that is really, really, really helpful. I mean, you get things done in a very short span of time that might take human effort multiple days. That is one thing that is really fascinating. And you get some initial level of ideation that you can then build upon, is what you're saying. So that is where the human intervention can marry with the, the initial foundational idea that is provided by the tools. Any cons, Ambi, any cons that you see, the way AI is evolving for your sector, any con that you're scared of कि यार ये नहीं होना चाहिए?
See, the problem is that if people start trusting AI blindly, right, then there's a big problem. AI makes a lot of mistakes. If you don't check and verify, you're in real deep trouble. Because a lot of stuff which comes out is wrong. And if you don't watch out for that, you're going to be in deep trouble. The other thing is we still don't know, which is, uploading documents. How confidential are these documents, right? Will they go into public domain? Then what's going to happen? A client has shared a confidential document with me about a new product, and I upload it on an AI platform to get a summary, and that is now in the cloud, right? So you got to make sure that it's in your private cloud, and your private cloud is not accessed by anyone else. So those are big worries, which I'm sure people are trying to solve.
Brilliant, brilliant. And I'll again want to show the book. This is Marketing Mixology, a beautiful book. Anyone who's interested in marketing, anyone who wants to know how this entire ecosystem works, can read and leverage the learnings. Ambi, you are amazing. You are absolutely brilliant. You are an amazing speaker. You have a very strong presence, and the work that you have written is a blessing for all the marketers out there.
Thank you, Raghav, for inviting me on to this podcast. Here is a book.
Yeah.
It is available in bookstores as well as on online book platforms. I do hope some of your listeners will find the book useful. So
Absolutely, they will. Absolutely, they will.